From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
As the coronavirus spreads, see how our state health officials are working to prepare Arizona for any possible impact.
My name is Kaylin Riley, and I'm here with my kids because I wanted them to experience what it's like to fight for their rights.
Plus, why gun rights advocates feel some legislative proposals could hinder their right to bear arms.
And Week in Review, in a historic vote, Maricopa declares the county a sanctuary for gun rights.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening, and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Jose Solis.
And I'm Tina Giuliano. Thank you for joining us. The coronavirus outbreak has reached the highest level of risk for the world, according to the World Health Organization. That was the announcement at a briefing in Geneva today.
Here in the U.S., there are 61 confirmed cases, including a new one in California. Reporter Alexa Fuenmayor spoke to local health experts to see how Arizona is handling this illness.
I think when anybody hears about a new infectious disease, it's always scary, especially when we don't know everything about it.
The coronavirus continues to infect people, the latest U.S. case happening in California. Although this individual tested positive without traveling to affected areas, Arizona Pharmacology and Toxicology Assistant Professor June Wayne says some patients may not know they're carrying the virus.
The patient from California might get a virus from someone who does not show symptoms.
Wang says the coronavirus and the flu have similar symptoms.
The only way to tell whether the person has flu infection or coronavirus infection is through genetic testing.
Currently, the CDC is the only organization cleared to administer testing. However, the Arizona Department of Health Services is trying to change that.
And we're working on getting testing capacity here in Arizona so that we can test it without setting it for the CDC to test.
Earlier this week, President Donald Trump spoke to the American public about the coronavirus threat.
The risk to the American people remains very low.
I don't think I will agree with what he said. I think the best practice is to prepare for the worst, because there's nothing to lose. I think we have to learn the lesson from what happens in China.
Ironically, Wang says the brutal heat that comes with the summer months that affect most of Arizona are actually a good thing.
We are approaching summer. It's dry and hot in Arizona, and those are doing us a favor. Viruses don't like this dry, hot weather. So dry, hot weather will help minimize virus spread in Arizona.
There is no antibiotic currently on the market for coronavirus. However, a trial for one has already begun.
As March begins, many schools are preparing for spring break and family vacations. But what impact is coronavirus having on those plans? Some travel restrictions are hampering those travel plans, as many flights to Asia are restricted. Disney parks in Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Tokyo are closed for the next 2 weeks. Italy has the highest number of cases outside of Asia and had quarantined some areas. Many are considering travel insurance to help ease their minds and their wallets if their plans need to be changed. We spoke to AAA of Arizona about what's covered.
Just make sure that you review that policy with your travel provider. For example, one big insurance company is already considering coronavirus a known event as of January 22nd. So if you purchase your plan after that date, you may not be covered. So just make sure that you're very thorough and you review the whole policy before you sign on that bottom line.
If you have questions, you should call the company who holds the policy before you travel.
Fears over the coronavirus are continuing to negatively affect global markets. The Dow closed down 357 points, making this the worst week on Wall Street since October 2008. The downturn in the markets is being driven by fears that the spreading coronavirus will derail the global economy. The coronavirus has shut down a number of industrial centers and emptied shops globally. A growing list of major companies are issuing profit warnings and say factory shutdowns in China are disrupting supply chains.
Arizona has some of the least restrictive gun laws in the country, but this legislation session may bring changes to that. Bills are pending across the spectrum, from banning assault weapons and high-capacity magazines to blocking people with domestic violence convictions from purchasing firearms. Cronkite News reporter Jordan Elder went to a Second Amendment rally at the Capitol to hear from those who oppose these restrictions and to learn more about their experience with firearms.
Many of those I spoke with consider guns to be symbols of freedom or family tradition. To better understand why they oppose tightening gun laws, I asked rallygoers to share the story behind their guns and their views on tougher laws.
We the people are sick to death of watching our freedoms get rolled back.
I am Scott Hoden. I'm here today because I believe strongly in the Second Amendment. I believe in our inherent rights as humans to be able to defend and protect what's important to us, including our own lives.
I'm Christopher Hunter, and I'm here at the Second Amendment rally today because I believe in the Second Amendment.
Hey, my name is Kaylin Riley, and I'm here with my kids because I wanted them to experience what it's like to fight for their rights.
Alan Milner. Arizona as a state feels very strongly about this right.
My dad used to take us out shooting. I feel like now with my family, my husband, I love watching him work with my kids, teaching about the importance.
19 years old, Marine Corps boot camp. They gave us a rifle and we had to live with it.
My grandfather had an old 22 bolt action rifle that I was started on very young. It kind of just lingered as a novelty, but joining the Army progressed it into almost want to call it at that time in my life a relationship.
My boys are well aware of the power that firearms can have in the hands of an individual.
Self-defense is nice as a right, not a privilege.
With rights, with freedom, come responsibility.
I have a 3-year-old daughter, and not a single gun is in physical access to her. She has gone shooting with me. She knows the no, you don't touch these things. And I do think that she shouldn't have access to it, and she doesn't have access to it.
The Second Amendment protects all guns, and whether I choose to have an AR-15 or a bolt-action rifle, there should be no infringements and no restrictions on that.
The guns aren't the problem, it's the people.
And here in Arizona, if we even sit idle for one day or a week, those rights could easily, vanish.
If you don't like guns, don't have guns. Be respectful and always understand the other side of it. I try my best to do so too. Sometimes I fail, but I try.
Groups like Moms Demand Action say they support people exercising their Second Amendment rights, but think more should be done to help prevent gun violence, especially among children. The group opposed a proposal to declare Maricopa a Second Amendment preservation county. The Board of Supervisors approved that idea this week. Arizona chapter volunteer Jennifer Zeklin told me, quote, "We just believe that guns need to be locked up." In the studio, Jordan Elder, Cronkite News.
A new bill was unanimously moved forward by the Arizona House and could give all non-violent state prisoners time off their sentences. They could receive credit if they work in prison or take drug treatment or major self-improvement courses while behind bars. Republican Representative Walt Blackman's proposal was approved last night, except the prisoners serving time only for drug offenses. Prisoners now serve 85% of their sentences before release. If the new bill is signed into law, inmates could serve as little as 65% of their sentences. It now goes to the Senate for consideration.
Phoenix City Council voted Tuesday to implement a civilian review board for the Phoenix Police Department. The approval came after Mayor Kate Gallego decided to retract her proposal in favor of Councilman Carlos Garcia's model. As Dylan McKim reports, Cronkite News got a chance to speak with Mayor Gallego to ask why she made her decision.
Mayor Gallego was the swing vote in that tight 5-4 decision on Tuesday, leading to a civilian review board that has the power to investigate police incidences, a decision many civilian oversight supporters were happy to hear, especially after they showed their opposition to the mayor's original plan. A group calling themselves the Civilian Oversight Coalition made themselves clear. They wanted a civilian review board, but not the one Mayor Gallego was proposing.
And frankly, I'm disappointed. in the mayor's office, because for them to take over and make a policy without even really talking to community and including us, it's quite hurtful.
It's disappointing to me that Mayor Gallego came out with an alternate plan that really doesn't create the accountability that we're looking for. It's honestly so watered down that it's ineffective.
We got a chance to catch up with Mayor Gallego yesterday to ask her why she backed a more moderate model.
I wanted to have one much stronger investigation with enhanced oversight as opposed to 2 investigations. I do have concerns that we're putting our police chief in a difficult situation where she has to choose between 2 competing investigations.
In the end,
I do plan to support Model B.
The Civilian Oversight Coalition got what they wanted.
While I was disappointed that the model the City Council chose did not include some of the innovations I thought would have helped us, I believed it was important ultimately to move forward with something.
Mayor Gallego also told us that although she is concerned with having competing investigations, she is confident that Police Chief Jerry Williams will be able to handle it and continue to ensure safety in the city. In Phoenix, Dylan McKim, Cronkite News.
Developing now, asylum seekers will no longer be sent to Mexico to await immigration hearings in the U.S. This afternoon, a federal appeals court blocked the Trump administration from continuing with the policy. The so-called We're Made in Mexico program started in January 2019. It required migrants, many of whom are from Central America, to stay in Mexico until their court date in the U.S. Customs and Border Protection officials say 59,000 people have been enrolled in the program.
Another cross-border tunnel has been discovered between Nogales, Mexico and Nogales, Arizona. At its deepest point, the tunnel is 20 feet underground and extends about 30 feet. The entrance to the incomplete tunnel is 580 yards west of the Nogales port of entry. According to the authorities, the tunnel is hand-dug with no shoring, ventilation, or lighting. This is the 4th tunnel reported by Tucson Sector Border Patrol agents since October.
It seems like the clouds have rolled in, and I was planning on taking a walk later.
Annabella Piunti joins us now. And is there rain in the forecast?
No rain in the forecast. We're looking at a really nice weekend, especially tomorrow. The sun is going to start to come out tomorrow, but later on in the week, we are tracking a roller coaster of temperatures. But right now in Phoenix, it is 74 degrees and mostly cloudy with 18% humidity. Moving on to your evening planner, we have a really nice evening ahead of us. Look at here. We have 76 degrees at 6 o'clock p.m., 71 degrees at 8 o'clock p.m. And then, of course, those temperatures are going to dip as we go later into the evening, and we'll see 66 degrees at the 10 o'clock hour. Moving on to your state lows for tomorrow. Up north, we're seeing a low of 30 degrees in Flagstaff, a low of 37 degrees in Prescott, a low of 53 degrees here in Phoenix, and a low of 50 degrees in Tucson. Looking at your state highs for tomorrow, up north again, a high of 54 degrees in Flagstaff, a high of 64 degrees in Prescott. As you move further south into the state, those temperatures are going to increase, and we'll see a high of 80 degrees here in Phoenix and a high of 78 degrees in Tucson. Looking at your 8-day forecast, we're going to start with your weekend here. Like I said, we have a great weekend to look forward to. We're seeing a high of 80 degrees and sunny on Saturday, a high of 74 degrees on Sunday. And then looking into the rest of your weekend, like I said, those temperatures are going to fluctuate. We're only going to see a high of 63 degrees on Monday, 74 degrees on Wednesday. And then next weekend, we have another great weekend of mid-80s to look forward to. In the Cronkite News Weather Center, I'm Annabella Piunti. Have a great weekend.
Coming up next on Cronkite News in Review, we take a look back at some of the top stories from this week.
That includes a sweeping new change to U.S. immigration policy, now in effect. What this means for Arizona.
And remembering historical impeachment trials through the generations when we return.
Ready to watch the best of PBS anytime, anywhere, on nearly any device? It's easy with the free PBS Video app. Simply download the PBS Video app on your mobile or streaming device. Now you can watch the latest PBS episodes or catch up on the shows you missed, discover new favorites from PBS, and local content from your PBS station.
Welcome back to Cronkite News in Review. New rules took effect Monday for immigrants applying for green cards or visas or admission into the United States.
U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services tried to implement these rules last fall, but multiple federal courts issued injunctions. Madison LaBerge spoke with an advocacy group that explained how the changes to what's known as public charge will affect Arizona families.
Those injunctions did temporarily stop the public charge rules from taking effect last year. But a new Supreme Court ruling lifted those final holds across the nation. When an immigration officer is looking at an application for a visa or a green card, they decide how likely that applicant is to become dependent on certain government benefits. A public charge is grounds for the denial of a visa, green card, or entrance into the U.S. Now, many immigrant families are both scared and confused. Across the nation, fewer Hispanics are enrolling in public benefits like access here in Arizona. It's important to note that public charge does not apply to all immigrants. Refugees, asylees, and U.S. citizens related to non-citizens are not affected under these new rules. I spoke with Simon Qasim, the president and CEO of Children's Action Alliance, who told me the new rules of public charge will affect a narrow group of immigrants, namely the ones that are applying for their green cards for the very first time.
Who public charge is really impacting is a much larger group of folks. And so in Arizona, 1 in 4 children lives in a household with an immigrant parent. And what you see is wide-ranging chilling effects through many immigrant communities. People who are eligible, people who public charge does not impact, are withdrawing from benefits, are uncertain, are confused, and feeling fear.
These new rules will take effect with application postmarked from today. Illinois was the last state with a federal court order blocking the new rules from taking effect. However, according to the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services website, the state is now included in the new nationwide rules. In the studio, Madison LaBerge, Cronkite News.
Wednesday, the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors voted on the hot topic of gun control here in Arizona's most populous county.
Cronkite News reporter Frankie McLister was at the meeting and tells us what the board ultimately decided.
Yeah, the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors tends to stay away from issues such as gun rights. But however, today, its members move forward on a proposed resolution despite some objections from members of the public.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Mr. Chairman, I vote a resounding no.
Thank you, Mr. Gallardo. The motion passes.
The Maricopa County Board of Supervisors voted 4-1 in favor of Arizona's most populous county becoming a preservation county when it comes to the Second Amendment. Although there isn't a set definition of the term preservation county, it refers to counties across the United States that adopt resolutions rejecting gun laws that violate the Second Amendment. For some present during today's meeting, it wasn't the outcome that they were hoping for.
Very disappointed. I think it was rushed through by the chair without adequate study, and especially about some of the unintended consequences of this and where it's coming from.
However, others agree with the measure.
I support making this happen because we need to set a clear message to the rest of the state and the country that Maricopa is not going to stand idly by and watch their Second Amendment rights taken away from them.
The declaration now affirms the Board of Supervisors' support of the Second Amendment in the U.S. Constitution and the provision of the state's constitution that protects the right to bear arms. One of the original provisions, which would have prohibited the board from using government money and resources to infringe on the constitutional right to keep and bear arms, was ultimately removed. The move was supported by Moms Demand Action, which is a group that fights for public safety measures protecting people from gun violence.
I wouldn't say we're happy with the decision, but what we were grateful for was that the final paragraph of the resolution, which indicated that the county would sort of unilaterally and potentially incorrectly decide to not use resources to enforce laws that they considered unconstitutional, that part was removed.
District 5's Steve Gallardo was the only dissenting vote.
There's a common sense approach to it.
And it's important to note that the passing of this bill is more symbolic than anything else, simply because Republican leadership hasn't scheduled it for a required public hearing. But I should say that there is no imminent concern of restrictive gun laws coming from the federal level. But with the presidency up for grabs in November, Republicans are pushing these proposals all across the country. In Phoenix, Frankie McWhister for Cronkite News.
Today marks 152 years since President Andrew Johnson, the 17th president of the United States, was impeached in 1868. He was acquitted by the Senate.
Since then, 3 U.S. presidents have had their own encounters with impeachment. Marcela Bayedo spoke to a local family to see how different generations remember these historical events.
In 1974, President Nixon left office before being impeached. 24 years later, President Clinton was officially impeached in 1998. And most recently, President Trump faced impeachment proceedings ending earlier this month. We wanted to understand what it's like for a multi-generational family to talk about and compare all these impeachments over dinner. Laughter, a warm meal, and politics.
Oh, I disagree.
Just a typical night at the Ashtons as they come together for dinner. Tonight's menu, chili and talk about the recent impeachment trial of President Donald Trump. Lynn Ashton Jr. has lived through the last 3 most recent impeachment events.
Nixon committed a crime. He tried to cover up a burglary. Clinton committed perjury during the Whitewater investigation. That's another crime.
And the most recent case, which Lynn Jr. says is not an impeachable offense.
Trump hasn't committed any crimes.
Lynn Jr. leads the family discussion over dinner most nights.
The House keeping it as closed as they did.
And sees the importance in involving the whole family.
Younger kids are often less informed, so you get more of an emotional response than an intellectual response.
The Senate and the House are still going to be fighting about the same thing.
For the youngest Ashton, 20-year-old Samantha, she says it's her first time seeing an impeachment trial.
I saw a meme.
She was so overwhelmed by the information on social media that she decided to delete her Twitter account.
I would rather get it from a source that I know is true and unbiased, like my family. I go to my dad and my grandma and even my brother because they'll tell me both sides.
Here in the West Valley, where the Ashtons live, they've been able to witness impeachment proceedings against President Donald Trump. Now, a different generation within their own family is able to compare this trial to other trials in history.
I watched every minute I could. When Nixon was impeached, I had little kids, and I do remember, being very aware of it. But I also remember that it was a longer process.
Grandparents Lynn Sr. and Mike Yell say with each impeachment case, partisanship grows.
This one was totally partisan, I believe. They started way too early.
Regardless of their differing views at times, the Ashtons say coming together at the end of the day for dinner to talk about important issues is a way for everyone to learn.
What are we talking about?
Adam Schiff, he was the one that led the House investigation against Trump.
Even though the impeachment proceedings against President Donald Trump are over, the Ashtons feel as if this will still be an important issue leading up to the 2020 presidential election in November. In the broadcast center, Marcela Bayedo, Cronkite News.
Mesa Mayor John Giles announced a plan to make college more affordable for students. The plan will offer 2 years of free community college tuition for Mesa residents.
Cronkite News reporter Madison Atkinson explains the program.
The Mesa College Promise campaign encourages high school students to go to college without those students being discouraged about the price of tuition.
It's a promise that if you do your part, if you stay in school, if you fill out the FAFSA form, and if you plan on going to college, that the community will help make up the difference between what you can bring to the table and what it takes to get registered for 2 years of community college.
All high school students in the city of Mesa are encouraged to apply for the program.
This will cover any high school student in the city of Mesa, whether they're in a charter school or a private school or a brick and mortar public school.
Students with Pell Grants and other federal aid will be eligible for the program. The program will cover the first 2 years of community college tuition.
The goal is to cover to get someone out of school with an associate's degree or a certificate. See, the motivation for this is really part of the AZ, Achieve 60 AZ program. Unfortunately, Arizona and Mesa, we are underachieving when it comes to higher education attainment compared to other states and other cities.
Mayor Giles believes the program will need to be funded by a combination of public and private dollars.
We certainly, as a college, want to contribute to it. The city wants to contribute to it. That's what makes this unique, is that it's really an arm-in-arm, hand-in-hand partnership between the city, the municipality, and the businesses and industry leaders in the city and the community, as well as the college.
Certainly, the city is coming together as the convener. We're the folks that are inviting folks to the table to come and help us organize this and to pay for it. So there'll be some city funding involved. But also, as I indicated, we're getting a great response from the business community.
The City of Mesa expects to have the program established by 2021. Broadcast Center, Madison Atkinson, Cronkite News.
Cronkite News is proud to be the news division of Arizona PBS.
Here's what's coming up on Arizona Horizon.
On the next Arizona Horizon, it's the Journalists Roundtable. The Phoenix City Council approves a citizen review board of the police department, and a court rules that Senator Martha McSally can keep her U.S. Senate seat until the November election.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thank you for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org. Have a great weekend.